Lifeboat Live, we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Good morning, everybody. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and you're on the lifeboat. You guys remember me? Sorry. I was really not in the best of shape yesterday. Little gift of squirrel nut zipper. I'm telling you, the cat sleeps on the bed and is such a part of my sleep that she's there. It's always right there. So when I got up and went to the bathroom, the cat doesn't get up. The cat doesn't get up unless I pass the bathroom, and then she follows me wherever I go. But I went to the bathroom, and as old men do, and as I was coming back in, she jumped up on my shoulder, which she does a lot. Thinks she's a shoulder cat, and she's now about 10 pounds, so she's a little bit too big to be a shoulder kitty. And it scared the hell out of me. I turned, I thought someone was getting me, and when I turned, it just wrenched everything. But hopefully everyone is well. I'm glad that I'm back in the chair. Had a couple of other people call on the house, which is nice. We're moving forward with that. Last night at midnight, I went to bed really early last night. I was asleep by 8-ish, and at midnight, a fire truck and a ambulance appeared right in front of my house, and it was loud. The fire truck was slamming doors, and they throw out a lot of light. So I got up and I looked out the window, and my neighbor was put on a stretcher and taken to the hospital. I often call her Miss Kravitz. You've heard me make references in the past to Miss Kravitz, and she's just a really sweet person. And I don't know, it upset me. One of those things that just, thank you, M. Hunt. I appreciate it. I feel good. I wanted to talk today about our why, because I think this is something that, if you're new to the lifeboat, it's a 3-step program. It's very simple, right? You list your lists of why, all of the reasons that you want to stop doing the things that you're doing. And it occurred to me that the why doesn't have to just be for drugs. We talk about drugs here because it's the thing that all of us have in common, is that we're all trying to fight an addiction that we have lost control over, our ability to handle our substance of choice. So the why is always pretty clearly defined, and I've gone over what my list was, or at least a lot of it, often. But it has occurred to me that that list of why can apply to so many things other than drugs. For instance, I'm getting ready to move, and I can take the exact same principles and attach them to decisions like that. Why do I want to move? What is the reasons that I want out? And if I start making a list, I I don't like driving down the street and seeing places that I did stupid things. And sadly, I did stupid things all over the city. And I'm looking forward to living in a place where that never happens. I'm looking forward to living in a place where everything I look at is new and I have an opportunity to make memories as Tommy Scoville, as the new person that I became, because it's, memories are such a huge part of addiction. They wreak havoc with us in a big way. Me being robbed by the gentleman whose name is Mark, who has nothing to do with the previous host of this show. I had a couple of questions and emails. I had an email from someone that said, Mark robbed you? It was not Mark Wages that robbed me. I don't know Mark's last name. I'm going to be calling to find out what his last name is, because now that he has been arrested, he will eventually be brought to my part of town, the holding facility that he is at currently. Actually, he may already be in Par Boulevard, but they're going to bring him up here, and I intend to go see him. I've thought about this at length, and I would like to go and visit this guy. I think that something productive may come of it. I'd also like to ask him what he did with the watch. Maybe there's a chance that that can be recovered. I have no desire whatsoever to go to court and talk about my what this did to me and do an impact statement and all of that. I think I would like to go to court maybe and ask the judge for leniency. There's no way this guy did this for any other reason than drugs. And sadly, we live in a world that this is the number one threat to our country currently. And there's a lot of threats to our country currently, but the number one threat is drugs. The most recent news and the most recent research that I've been able to do has these pills in most parts of the country a high of $3 and a low of $1. $1 a pill. Keeping in mind that these are designed to mimic a Percocet 30. When I was at the end of my drug run, Percocet 30s were the popular pharmaceutical on the street, because OxyContin had been taken off of the market by the Sackler family, which they did to act as if they cared about society. They went to Congress and said, boy, you're absolutely right. This OxyContin stuff is just terrible. And we made a mistake, and we realize our mistake. So what we would like to do is remove the Oxy 80s and the 40s from the market until they can be reformulated in such a way that they cannot be smoked, snorted, or injected. What they really did was buy themselves about 5 more years of no one being able to make a generic. Really a sleazy family. The Sacklers are just absolute dirt. But to make a long story short, the Perc 30 was the substance of choice from a pharmaceutical standpoint. And the going rate was about $17, $20 right in there a piece, about the time that I quit doing drugs, almost a decade ago. So the fact that there's a drug out there of the same strength that's going for $1, and obviously the strength is higher in most cases, and it's not by any stretch the same drug. It is it has a much shorter lifespan in terms of how long the drug keeps the mu receptor stimulated. Right, the way that drug works, the way that all opiates work, is when they attach to the mu receptor, the mu or the mu2 or whatever you want to call it. But when they attach to that receptor, they get that receptor to release chemicals that make you feel high. Apparently, fentanyl does that for a very short period of time. At least street fentanyl does, which is unusual, because the real fentanyl, that was not an issue. It didn't certainly last as long as other opiates, but it lasted 6 to 7 hours, as opposed to say 8 to 10 or 14 or so. But according to the people that I've been talking to, this is a 3 to 4 hour period of being well. So they've really engineered this stuff in such a way to really make it painful. But I digress. I have said many times recently that as you start to go through the process of relapse, when you start to realize that you're going in the wrong direction, you're no longer moving forward, but you're starting to move backwards. One of the best things that you can do is get out that list. Take out your journal, go to the first page where you wrote down your whys and read them. And here's the thing. If you wrote down for your why, my daughter, my son, my father, the people who cared about me, the fact that I would be a better person, then you failed at what you did. And if that's what you've been doing, then I failed at describing it. When you write down my daughter, write down everything you love about that child. Write down what makes your daughter unique. Write what it is about that child that touches you deeply. What is it about that child that is so special that you want to quit? Because if all you're saying is, I'd like to quit for my kid, you're missing the boat. The idea when you start to fill out the list of why is to create a connection that can't be broken. You're trying to create a connection that is going to last the rest of your life. You understand? When I wrote down my father, it took pages. When I wrote down my mother, it took pages because I knew what I had done to both of them. I knew that my mother had spent untold mornings on her knees praying for me. I knew what my mother went through the first time that I was incarcerated, the first time that they found out that I was, behind bars had to be hell. So it's more than just writing down the name of the individual. You really should have a point of contact, something that really drags you to that why, something that connects you in a way that nothing that comes down the pike could ever rock that. If you write dad and you feel like getting high, dad might not be, quite enough. I've told the story on here before that I was a fugitive from justice once, and I was in Colorado, and I was the last person to get on an airplane to fly back to the United States. And this is a difficult story to get through. If I cry, I apologize. But it was the old days. It was prior to 9/11. And for that reason, people could meet you at the gate. I was wearing an outfit that I had bought at the Salvation Army, a pair of Chuck Taylors, a t-shirt, and a pair of shorts. And it was all that I had to my name. I had a business partner at the time that was living with me in Colorado. And I was working two jobs. I was working at a place called the Burdekin, which is a sandwich shop. And I was working at a pizza place called Abo's. And I would work one shift and then go directly to the other shift. And when I wasn't doing that, I was going door to door. And it is what it is. But somebody had grown pot and it had a ton of seeds in it. Like it really got damaged. So they threw it in a dumpster. And as I was walking around, I smelled a skunk. And I went and found 3 trash bags full of plants. I mean, there had to be 25 pounds of pot there, but there was about 1,000 seeds in every bud. It was absolutely ridiculous. And I would stay up every night when I came home and I would pull the seeds out of the stuff. And I would just continue to de-seed it, take every single seed out. It took weeks, but I would create these big, huge bags of male pot that looked very female by the time I was done with it. And when I wasn't working at either of my jobs, I would go door to door in the dorms and I would knock on the door and say, how would you like to buy 2 ounces of pot for $100? And I got myself to where I had close to $6,000. I was building up enough money to try to get on my feet. And I got caught backstage at a Blues Travelers concert. They said they needed to take everyone's ID to make sure that no one drove drunk. You had to check out on the way back out. And I was already in. And when they asked for my ID, I thought, oh, crap. But there was really nowhere to go. And I gave them my ID, and I wasn't drinking. I wasn't doing anything. I was just waiting to get that ID back. And I was terrified. And my fears were My fears had come to fruition. They ran my ID and they found that I was a fugitive from justice. So when I went to get my driver's license back, they arrested me. And my father bailed me out. My mother and father bailed me out of jail. And my dad, as I have said before, he had a very short fuse. It was very much like mine. And there were times I did stupid, really small things and got yelled at in a big way. But as I've said in the past, when the chips were down and things were really awful, my dad was at his best. But I was sitting on the very last seat on a Southwest flight, and we had landed, and the windows of the terminal were mirrored, but you could see in them enough to see that there were people waiting for everyone to get off the plane. And you know how it used to be, if you're old enough to remember what that was like, there would be a crowd of people waiting to greet people and say hello. And, they hold up signs that say welcome home and whatever. And you see people with balloons. And as I looked through the mirrored glass, that's what I saw. I saw all of the people that were walking off the plane to be greeted by people who were really happy to see them. And people that were just, there was so much love there. That's the way it used to be. Now it's really depressing. You get off a plane and you're alone and you walk down to baggage claim. It's just a different world we live in. But I was the last person to get off the plane. And as everybody was standing up to get stuff out of the overhead, which may have shifted during flight, I just sat in the back because I had nothing to get. And I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to get off the plane because I knew I was going to have to go face my dad. And I knew he was going to be angry. I knew he was just going to be just pissed, that he had to put up, I don't remember how much it was. It was either $10,000 or $20,000. Bizarre too, because it came in a cashier's check, and a FedEx man I woke up in a cell and there was a FedEx guy, uniform, the whole work, said, "You need to sign for this." And I signed, and there was the envelope. And when I ripped the envelope open, there was a cashier's check in it, which somehow they let me hold. And after breakfast, I said to the cop, I was given this check, and he said, "Well, bring it to court with you." And I brought it to court, and then they arranged bail so that I could leave. And the lawyer said to me, "There's an airline ticket waiting for you." And I went home to get my money, and my partner in crime had disappeared with it. I had nothing, literally nothing. I got on that plane with about $1.60 in loose change that I had found around the house. But as I sat on the back of the plane and I looked through that window, I thought to myself, I wish that I was going to signs and hugs and loved ones. I was just waiting to get yelled at. And when I walked off that plane and I went through the little gangway, the signs and the balloons were for me. And my father stood there holding a welcome sign. I just never have felt anything like that. The love that my family had in spite of what I was. And I went and I hugged him and I was crying and I just said, "I'm so sorry. I screwed up. I'm so sorry." And my father was one of those Christians that didn't preach to people, but he lived it. He cursed. He lost his temper. I watched him punch a guy in the head at least twice in my life. But he lived it. And when I hugged him, I said, "I'm sorry." And he said, "We're going to kill the fatted calf tonight," which is from the Bible. It's from the son, the prodigal child. My father said, "We're going to kill the fatted calf. My son is home." I just couldn't believe it. Well, that's what I wrote down on my why. Because to write dad is a 3-letter word. But to rewrite that story, that's the kind of thing that keeps you from using when you want to get high. So if your list of why has things like dad, daughter, son, then you've blown it. You're not doing it right. I have my son was on that list, but I just didn't write my son. I wrote the day that he was born. And I've been very open. I adopted my son. And my biggest fear was that I wasn't going to love him. May sound really terrible, right? But just being honest. I mean, he wasn't mine, and I didn't know how I was going to deal with that. And when the woman came in and handed him to me, he had the biggest blue eyes you've ever seen. And smart people tell me that he couldn't see me, that his eyes didn't focus, and kids don't see. But his eyes that didn't focus stared at mine for about 40 seconds. We just locked eyes. Apparently he was seeing nothing, but I saw so much. And I had never felt love like that. I mean, instantly, that was my son. And there was nobody on the planet that could have told me otherwise. And the bond that was created in that second was absolutely remarkable. I really have never felt love like that. So I don't write down my son. I wrote down that. And my daughter, the miracle birth of my daughter, which I've talked about many times on the boat before. But I wrote that down. All of those things. Not originally. Originally, I went back to Q and I said, here's my list. And he said, the hell is that? He said, those names are going to keep you from getting high? And I said, yeah, I don't want to disappoint those people. He said, no, go back and write who those people are. Go write down who those people are and what those people mean to you. Because what you're trying to do is come up with a reason that is going to defy reason. Because we're broken. And people don't like it when I say that, but we are. Right? That's what a disease is. It's a defect. Well, we are defective. And if we're going to get through that defect, then you need to tie yourself to something that is far greater than a 6-letter word or a 5-letter word. So if you're struggling to stay sober, if you're struggling to get through the times where you really feel like using, may I suggest that you go back to your why page and rewrite it. And write it the way it should be written. Don't just put down someone's name. What makes that person worth quitting? Something you can't quit. What makes that person so special that you'll hurt for them? You understand the difference? The difference in putting, son, and the difference of the day that son became your son is really a different thing. My dad is gone, but he's not gone. He is still probably the most powerful name on that list. You see, my father never gave up on me when he had 1,000 reasons to give up on me. As I said earlier, my father never beat anybody over the head with the Bible. It's not who he was. But God forgives you as many times as you screw up. I'm not preaching to you people. This is my belief and it's my religion. God forgives you as many times as you screw up. Right? 7 times 7,000. Well, that was my dad. He had every reason in the world to give up on me. He had every reason in the world to stop loving me. But he never did. And that specter will loom over me forever. And I thank God that it does. Because I'm telling you, when I say, I'm never going to get high again, and people tell me not to say that, my whys are bulletproof. The things that I have written down on my paper for why, my dad, my mom, again, every reason in the world to give up on me. Instead, she got up at 5 a.m. and got on her knees and prayed for me every day. I'm blessed. Not everyone is. Not everyone is blessed. There's a lot of people whose parents suck. Maybe they're not on your list. But the things on your list were important enough to put down. Then they're important enough to put the why. They are your why. They're important enough to write out in detail why that name is on the list. Maybe it's not a name. Maybe it's something you gave up on. Maybe you had a dream, and that dream meant more to you than anything in the world, and you just walked away from it because of dope. Get back and remember the things that you gave up on and write them down. In modern Narcotics Anonymous, in modern Alcoholics Anonymous, they say that your higher power can be a doorknob, right? It could be your car, your motorcycle, whatever. Your motorcycle will not keep you from buying a bag of dope. Neither will a doorknob. Now, if you don't believe in God, that's fine. That's fine. You have that right. But you better have a damn good why on that list. And I'll tell you something. The way I feel about my son, my daughter, my mother, my father, everybody on my list is a power greater than myself. I hope that makes sense to you. Now, I'll tell you something. Above all is God. But that's my list, not yours. If I was not someone that believed in God, my dad, my mom, Spanx, right? Cedar, those are all reasons that are far greater than myself. They are a reason far, far bigger than me. If you don't know what that reason is, you can go ahead and get your next drink. Or go ahead and buy your next bag because you're going to get high. I promise you. We don't have 12 steps, right? This is a pretty simple system. And to be really honest, that first step, the rest of them, right, all hinge on that. It's fantastic to come to grips with who you are. It is. It is an important thing to come to grips with how people would describe you if you weren't there. That's huge. It's also painful as hell. It's so painful that if you don't have a damn good why, you're going to quit halfway through it. The people that put this together are so much smarter than me, people. They are so much smarter than me. But you talk about a 3-step program that works if you work it. When you start tearing yourself apart, which is what the second step is, the second step rips you apart. Everything fake about who you are is gone, and you're left with who you really are. That's what the second step is supposed to be. It is a absolutely vicious, honest assessment of who and what you are. You will never get through it if your first step is just dad, son, daughter. You'll quit. You will. But if you write down what those people mean to you, if you write down what your dream meant to you, if you, whatever your whys are, if those whys are so clearly defined that you realize what they mean to you, they're not just words on a piece of paper. You ripped open a vein and you bled onto that page. If you do that correctly, then when you start tearing yourself apart, you won't quit. When you get to that feeling of, I cannot believe this is who I am. I cannot believe this is what I have let myself become. I'm a liar. I'm a thief. I can't be counted on. Every single thing I say is to try to get dope. If I'm talking to you, it's because I'm working an angle to try to get money out of you. To do that kind of honesty is a difficult thing to do. Unless, of course, you've tied it to something that is more important than you. Because I'll tell you something. When the time came for me to quit, I hated myself. I'm not exaggerating. I hated myself. I had 46 years of life And the only thing I had to show for it was 44440, right? A register number. Nothing else. I had a Sony radio with one battery, right? 2 or 3 bags of Folgers and track marks like you wouldn't believe. That's what I had to show for 46 years on this planet. I had beautiful children that I wasn't there to raise. I had women who loved me, whose lives I destroyed. I didn't like me at all. So it was my mom and my dad and my son and my daughter, my siblings. Those were the reasons. There was enough love still there to get by all of the hate that I felt for myself so that I could tear down who I was and get by all of the BS and be left with who I really was: a dirtbag, a liar, a thief, a convict, a drug addict. And then the beauty of this system is that you then get to rebuild yourself. And if you take that for granted, then you're a jackass. Honestly. It's such a beautiful system that he came up with, because redemption comes on the heels of you being destroyed. You tear yourself apart, and the next day you start to rebuild. The next day you get to say, this is who I am from this day forward. This is who I am. And if you do it right, it's not going to be an easy process. It's not. There are days you're going to start slipping back. And when you do, what do you think keeps that from happening? 3 letters? Think DAD stops that? The memory of someone saying something like, we're going to kill the fatted calf. That kind of stuff keeps you from sliding back into page 2 and to continue to work on page 3. And when you've got page 3 completely done and you have designed the human being you want to be, there's so little that needs to happen from that point forward to maintain. Very simple. I mean, so simple that people can't seem to get it. Did you do it before? Okay, don't do it anymore. You didn't do it? Okay, start doing it now. It's pretty much it. Really is. It's pretty much it. A little bit of dedication. Get up and make your freaking bed. Don't live in a pigsty. Have what you do declare who you are. Every single day when you get up in the morning, you declare who you are by making the damn bed. May sound silly, may sound bizarre, might not make sense. Give it a try. Declare who you are. Brush your teeth. I know so many people are going, brush your teeth. Like people don't brush their teeth. Yeah, junkies don't. I didn't. Certainly not consistently. Maybe if the dope was really good, you know what I mean? Like I fixed it. I felt really awesome about myself and then ran my tongue over my teeth and realized it felt like a sweater. I might go in and brush my grill. But if it happened twice a week, that was a miracle. I'm just being honest. So was showering. Especially if you're addicted to the needle. Showers are not fun. They're not. You also learn that the more you keep a layer of grime on you, the longer your dope lasts. Stone cold fact. You'll meet some heavy-duty hardcore junkies that will not ever take a shower because they can stretch a shot for 14 hours because all of that stuff that's trying to leach through the skin can't get by the filth that's built up on the body. Disgusting, right? Disgusting. But that's the kind of thing that page 2 covers. If you're really taking a look at who you are, you write down things like, my hygiene sucks. I don't even wash. Then you start doing all of those things and you create a new you. And I want to tell you something. It's awesome. It's awesome. It really is. Beautiful things will begin to happen. People will put faith in you. If that hasn't happened to you before, it is an amazing feeling the first time it happens. The first time people treat you differently. They treat you like somebody that should be listened to, that will change you. It will bring a hellacious amount of responsibility that you have never felt before. And you know what it's going to make you want to do? It's going to make you want to run back to page 2 because we don't understand any of that. We don't know what it feels like to be respected. We gave that up a long time ago. Anytime we feel something that doesn't jive with what we've been doing our entire life, our solution is to get high. So your why has to be bulletproof. Because when good things start happening, when you open a business and the business starts making money, the first thing that you want to do is figure out a way to sabotage it. Like the gambling addict who's addicted to losing. The addict is addicted to failure. This is a difficult concept for people to understand, even if you're in the life. But it's why if you were given an unlimited amount of dope and an unlimited amount of cash, you would still crash and burn. Look at the rock stars that we lose every single year. Because they got to keep pushing the envelope. Why? Because success isn't comfortable. It's uncomfortable. They don't understand. Respect is a difficult thing. It's one of the reasons that my brother freaks out when people call him a legend. It's one of the reasons I'm not real fond of it either. The really nice emails, I'm getting a lot better at reading them, but they're difficult. It's difficult to hear people tell you that you're a good person when you know that you didn't really start that way. The one thing that I can say with absolute clarity and certainty is I am trying every day of my life to be a good man. I really am. I am striving like you wouldn't believe every day to be a good man. I'm not hitting it out of the ballpark by any stretch. I'm not. There are still parts of me that are just not there yet. But I don't try to be a bad person. And I spent a lot of years where that was my go-to. I spent every day trying to be a dirtbag because being a dirtbag put dope in my arm. What is your why? How clearly have you defined your why? If all goes well, sometime in your addiction, it might be year 1, it might be year 2, it might be month 1. I don't know. It's going to be different for everybody. But you're going to have a desire to go back to that why list and put your own name on it. The lifeboat ended up on my why list. And the why list doesn't change very often. It really doesn't. The things that you put down for your why will last you your entire life. Everything else around you will change, right? From day to day, things change. Your business, you might get a different job, a different vocation. You can move to a different place. You can marry a different person. You can start a different family. But that why, the reason that was worth quitting when you weren't worth quitting for, those reasons don't ever change. But you can add to them. I promise you the lifeboat is on that list. And it's a huge part of that list. It really is. I'm sure that all of you have considered what would it be like if Tommy got high. If you've never thought that, I'm shocked. Because it would really be something, wouldn't it? You do 800 and some odd shows. You know, what would happen? What would that do to all of these people that show up here? I believe the lifeboat would probably say, I forgive you. Yeah, I'd have a real tough time forgiving myself. I really would. The good news is there's no chance in hell of that happening because my whys are bulletproof. My whys don't ever let me down. My dad, my mom, my brother and sister, my kids, my God, my kids. My God. It's funny how your whys will shift a little bit. Because I promise you, I wasn't right enough with God that when I made that list, he was not the first thing I wrote down, and he should have been. Absolutely should have been. For the same reason that my dad was the first name that I wrote down, and my mom was second. Because they never gave up on me when they had a million reasons to. And God never gave up on me either. Should have been the first thing I wrote down. I assure you now he's my number one why. But you better get intimate. And I mean intimate with that list of whys, because you're going to have crappy days. You're going to have days that are devastating. That's just the reality. We're not like other people. And that's the reality. The trouble is, we have the exact same problems as other people. Other people lose loved ones. But when we lose loved ones, it's different. You see, when other people lose loved ones, they don't think to themselves, I could make this stop. I could make this pain stop. I could make this go away. That's unique to us. You understand? That is our biggest threat. That is what looms over us like nothing else. That we have the ability to make the normal day-to-day things that drive everybody on this planet, addicted or otherwise, to the pits of depression. You realize that normal people never have that thought. When they lose somebody they care about, they go through denial, right? Which is the first part of all suffering. They go, no, he's not gone. He's not gone. It couldn't be. And then they go through the acceptance, and they go through that whole phase, right? That's normal. That's what happens to everybody on this planet except us. Because before we get to that denial, we go, God, I could use a shot. One shot. Right? Then the ants go wild, and the illogical BS, automatic negative thoughts. Dude, you've been sober 8 years. Just do heroin today. Get through today with it. You don't have to do it tomorrow. All that BS. You know what kills all of that? Rock solid why. A rock solid why. So please, if your why is not rock solid, if your why just reads a list of names, fix it. Go back there and write why that name is on your list. Write what makes that person perfect. I have not been reading any comments today. And the reason is, this is one of those talks that I did not want to get sidetracked on. It occurred to me. I went back and started looking at other videos that I did. I've been up since midnight when my neighbor got taken to the hospital. It just disturbed the crap out of me. I can't even explain why, but it really, it disturbed me. But I went back and I started looking at whys. I started looking at every time I talked about the 3 steps, but I have never beat this one to death. I have never really hammered home just how important it is that why is the anchor for the rest of your life. If there's a name on that list, write 4 pages on that name. Unless, of course, you can write 5 or 6 or 7. For my mom or my dad, I could keep writing till the end of time. I was blessed to beat the band. Spanx Calhoun, I could write for days. His sister, I could write for days. I have great anchors. I really do. I have amazing anchors. And I love the reference to call them anchors, whole lifeboat thing. Because that really is what it is. We anchor our sobriety to our why. Don't have a weak anchor. I guarantee you that the names that you put down or the reasons that you put down are solid as hell, or they wouldn't be there. By the way, if you've never done this, if you've never made a list of your whys, you're going to get high. I promise. It's not if, it's when. Because there are days, people, where we're just not worth it. There are days for every addict that you're just not worth saving. If that's all that you got. I love that BS. Well, you got to do it for you. You can't do it for anybody else. I'll tell you what, I did a damn good job doing it for somebody else. I have a lot of friends that have used this system that did it for other people, and it worked. Eventually, yeah, I do it for me. I do. I get up and I do this video blog every single day because this is my journaling. This is for me as much as it is for any of you, I promise. This is about me. This is one of the ways that I stay sober because I am worth it. But on days where I feel like page 2 Tommy, then page 1 is what keeps me getting back to page 3. And if that confused the hell out of you, then you need to go back and listen to a whole bunch more Lifeboat. If you just got here and that confused the crap out of you, go back and listen to some more Lifeboat. Because this is a very, very simple program. 3 steps. And if you respect the first step and you do it right, you're going to get sober. You're going to get sober. Beautiful things will start to happen. Beautiful things will start to happen. You will have days that are more amazing than anything you can imagine. There are things that come to my mind when I say that, when that rolls off my lips. Last Christmas, my kids were not with me. In fact, I've never had both of my kids with me on Christmas at the same time, or my birthday. That day is coming. But last Christmas, my son and my daughter called me on the telephone, and we spent about 25 minutes talking, and I was looking at both of my kids at the same time. And I'll tell you something, it never would have happened. It never would have happened. If I didn't get sober that day, never would have happened. I'll tell you something else. 2 Februaries ago, on the last day of the month, my dad died. And hands down, it was the worst day of my life. And I got through it. Amazingly, one of the reasons I got through it was him. As much as he wasn't there, he was there. He's an anchor. My mother will be an anchor when I'm 60 or 70 or 80. So will my dad. You do this right. You take this thing seriously, and that page 1 will change the rest of your life. It will allow you to do page 2 and tear yourself down to nothing. And you may be able to do that in one day and never, ever have to revisit it. I'm not that guy. See, I had a really bad page 2. I have loved ones that are tired of me saying, you know what? I robbed banks. I stole. They're tired of me saying it. They really wish that I would just pack that one away. But see, my biggest fear in life is that I'm going to forget page 2. You get a lot of people that tell you you're a great guy and that you're helping so many people and that you're selfless and all that crap, and you can start believing it. And then you can forget page 2. And if I forget page 2, page 3 is in trouble. So for me, I will remind myself of what I was when I didn't care enough about page 1. God, family, dreams. When I gave up on that, then I became the world's biggest piece of crap. And I will remind myself of what I was. I will continue to do that. Make no mistake, though. I love who I am today. I really do. I have bad days. Everybody has bad days. Normal people who never did dope, they have bad days too. We all have bad days. But I can look my kids in the eye. I can look my mother in the eye. I don't lie to people. I don't steal from people. I don't do things I'm ashamed of. And you know what? For the first time in my life, I've got some people that are friends of mine who are not dirtbags. I love Alan Ballantyne. I really do. I love Alan. I don't think I've ever had a friend like him. It's a really cool thing to be able to say. You know? I've talked about my friends on here before. I've talked about Jack. Jack was no Alan Ballantyne. You know? It's worth it. this journey, the struggles, the day that you realize that you're not such a great person and you got to say it, you got to admit to somebody what a piece of crap you are. You got to write it down on a piece of paper. Just what you've become because of drugs. It's a terrible day. In fact, for me, it was a terrible week. Seriously, it took about a week. I don't know. I don't imagine anyone else's would take a week, but you won't be filling it out in a federal prison cell either. It's a pretty simple program, people. It's 3 steps. If you've been sober for a long period of time and life is going really good, do yourself a favor. Go back and revisit page 1. Revisit it. Remind yourself why those whys are there. Remind yourself how friggin' important those whys are and why they are so important. And you will find yourself getting through very, very difficult times that in the past you wouldn't have had a chance of getting through. I'm sorry that I did not put on the live chat today. I wanted to get through this. I also had a very sneaky suspicion that if my son was on, that this would have been too hard to get through. There are other reasons that this just needed to be one that I didn't look at. So to everybody here, because there's 25 or 26 of you, thank you for tuning in this morning. Please, 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 please take this one more seriously than anything you ever heard me do. Honestly, go back and look at that first page. And I'm not preaching, but if you're a believer, slide God to the top of that list. He makes everything else happen. Not thumping our Bible at you. I lost 80 people. 80 people after I talked about the resurrection of Jesus. How's that? And you know the really funny thing? They're still watching. They just wanted me to be punished because the views don't drop. Just the number of subscribers do. So if it made you feel better, God bless you. I love you anyway. Go back and figure out what is important to you and write why. Because there's going to be a day. It might be this week. It might be next week. Maybe you get lucky and it'll be years from now. But there's going to be a day that the only thing that keeps you from sticking a needle in your arm or a straw up your nose isn't going to be you, right? It's not going to be your job. It's going to be the things you wrote down on that first piece of paper, your whys. And if they're just letters, you're in trouble. Have them be stories. Have them be memories. Have them be things more important than drugs, more important than pain. I love you, people. I will be here tonight. The cat is in the garage. She actually has a mouse. She's outside playing with it. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville. This has been The Lifeboat. We'll see you this evening. God bless. And do me a favor. Say a prayer for Miss Kravitz, my neighbor. All right? God bless.